What's up, everybody? In Power, we heard several stories about Breeze from Ghost, Tommy, and Kanan. However, all of those stories took place following the meeting between Breeze and Kanan in episode 10. We now know a little more about Breeze, his background before meeting Kanan, and the stories that were told about him in OG Power now that we've seen him on screen. In this video, I'm going to dig into Breeze's backstory and try to dissect the information we learned about him in Season 4, Episode 10. The first time Breeze was mentioned in OG Power was when Ghost was standing outside of Club Truth on opening night, thinking about how far he had come. He talked about how they started working the corners for Breeze and Kanan when Tommy came up to him. But at the same time, we know all the conversations about Breeze in OG Power were spoken in the past tense. We later learned that Ghost took out Breeze when he was about 17 years old, which places Breeze's death around the year 1997. In the current Raising Kanan timeline, which ends in 1992, Breeze has controlled the South Side for approximately 5 years. Now, in Raising Kanan, we got our first mention of Breeze in the present and how he's living in the current timeline. Breeze got his first mention in Raising Kanan through his aunt and uncle, Snaps and Pop Henry. The first thing we learned about Breeze is that he's their nephew. Since Breeze is the nephew of two of the biggest players on the South Side, OGs who said they made the game, even though we don't know who Breeze's parents are, this still makes Breeze a second-generation dealer. That's a pattern we've seen throughout the Power universe, whether it's Kanan, Tariq, the Tejada children, or Vic and Claudia Flynn. There have been more second-generation dealers in the Power universe than those who started from nothing. That prompts the inquiry regarding Breeze's parents. Were they also involved in the game when Snaps and Pop were at their most active? In the same conversation where Breeze was first mentioned, they weren't even calling him Breeze yet. We learned that Barford is his government name. Snaps went on to say that their nephew had just relocated to South Jamaica from a very lucrative stint in East New York. This indicates that Breeze did not come from the South Side. Rather, he started his career in East New York, Brooklyn. Snaps described it as a lucrative stint, and Breeze even pulled up in a Porsche in the early 90s. This raises two questions. Does Breeze still have his operation running in East New York, and what made him relocate to the South Side? Did Snaps and Pop tell him there was opportunity in Queens? Or did something happen with his East New York operation that made him look to rebuild? This also suggests Breeze's parents might still be in Brooklyn. Perhaps Pop moved to the South Side after meeting Snaps and growing up there. Then we got to the face-to-face meeting between Breeze and Kanan, Breeze's official introduction to the show. Snaps said that Breeze is one of the brightest minds and most daring thinkers you'll ever meet when he introduced Breeze to Kanan. He called him both a scholar and a visionary, learning and building at the same time. When Snaps called him a scholar, that could mean one of two things. He could become an expert in the drug trade by studying his predecessors. Remember, Snaps and Pop have a problem with Rock because they feel she doesn't show them the respect they deserve. Meech was said to be a scholar in the game, someone who studied fictional dealers from movies like Scarface and Blow, in addition to learning from real dealers. Or it could mean Breeze was educated, possibly with a college degree. Breeze watched Jeopardy every day, as we already know. If he did go to college, maybe that's where he set up shop in East New York, similar to how Tariq and Braden set up shop at Stansfield. This would also explain Snaps' claim that he was learning and building simultaneously. He was constructing his drug empire while also receiving an education. We don't know Breeze's exact age yet, but it seems like he's a few years older than Kanan, probably in his early 20s. That would be about the right age if he had just finished college. Now that we know Breeze is a scholar and visionary, and given that he watched Jeopardy every night, maybe he even dreamed of going on the show one day. Another inquiry, who is the plug for Breeze? Were Snaps and Pop bankrolling his East New York operation the same way they backed Ronnie's operation in Season 3 that carried over into Season 4 as Kanan's? When Snaps and Pop first pitched Kanan and Unique working with Breeze to corner the market, they told Kanan they had their own Connect and their own trucks. Were they referring to Breeze's plug? Because during the meeting between Breeze and Kanan, Snaps slipped and said they needed Unique, at least temporarily, for his Italian connection. So who really has the plug, Snaps, Pop and Breeze? Or were they just pretending and actually needed Unique's Connect? Another thing to ask is what kind of product Breeze was moving in East New York. Was he selling crack or coke, or was it heroin, as we saw in the previous 2 seasons of Raising Kanan? Keep in mind that Ghost and Tommy's use of heroin was never mentioned in OG Power. Kanan once told Tarek that he, Ghost and Tommy used to sell crack like crazy back in the day. At the end of their meeting, Breeze told Kanan that he's all about his business, just like he heard Kanan was. They can also agree on everything else if they can agree on that. So, in the first episode of Season 5, we should see Breeze's first moves as he becomes a main character, potentially a lead if Rock is dead. One thing I'll be watching is how Breeze operates. Is he the violent type, like Ronnie, who ruled by fear? Or is he more like Meech, who felt violence was bad for business? Also, remember that Ghost once told Tariq that Breeze was a bad dude who was going to get them all killed. So in Season 5, we'll find out what Breeze was doing that made Ghost say that. We'll also see Breeze living in apartment 5D at the Baisley Projects, and how different his place was from the older woman who moved in after him. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories and predictions in the comments.